This is a quick review of Module 1. Find the mean, median, mode, and range for the list of numbers. And this one, let's see, how many numbers do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so 12 total numbers. And like I said, the first thing I like to do is to list these in order from least to greatest. So I would just kind of start by identifying all my negatives. And remember, the bigger the negative, the lower its value. Now, you don't have to do this for the mean, but you will have to do it for the median and kind of for the range as well. So I'm just focusing on my negative numbers first. So for example, I got negative 43, negative 23, negative 82, negative 59, negative 37, and I believe that's all my negatives. So we just need to list these now in order from least to greatest. And for me, I'm going to start with negative 82 because it's the biggest negative I see on that list. Hopefully that's smaller. So I've used that up right there. And next up, I see I got a negative 59, which is a bigger negative than the others. So there's that one used. I go into my negative 40s, which is negative 43. So I use that one. And don't get that one confused with the positive 43, which is just below it right there. Be careful on that stuff. So that's all my negative 40s. Now the negative 30s. That's a negative 37 right there. And then negative 23, that would be our final negative. So positives are a little bit more straightforward. You're just looking for the one that's the smallest and then work your way up. So all the rest are positives. So I'm just going to list these up. And I don't see anything in the 1s, 10s, 20s. I don't see any 20s. But I do see 35 and 35 right there. So there's 35. Let's do 35s right there. Okay, so I use those up. And next up I got 3 values in the 40s. 2 of them are 43. So I need to list those. Let's see if I can do this small enough. There's 43 and 43. And then we use those. So cross those out. And then 48 is my next one. So let's go and list that in there. Just have to go into the table, I think, because I'm running out of space. And now we got 61 and 75. Those are our last two. And of course, 61 is smaller than 75. So we'll come first. And then 75 is our biggest number in this list. Okay? So there it is. And again, I apologize. Those numbers are kind of small in the end, but run out of space there. So now we're ready to start. Of course, if you already found the mean by this time, then that's okay too. But in order to figure out our mean, we just need to add all these numbers together. There is quite a few numbers to add together, but hopefully it's not too big of a deal here. So let's take our list, and really all we're going to do is, it's kind of like we're just putting plus symbols between these. Now, some of you may ask, well, how are you able to do that? Because you can't just switch the orders of the numbers. The answer is yes, we can. We can switch the order of the numbers because of the commutative property of addition, which I think we covered in 1.5. Maybe not, but that is something that we should know by now for a review like this one. So I'm going to work my way left to right, although you could stack and add these. It's really up to you. And so for me, I would start with negative 82 plus 59. I have to do this work a little bit smaller, but these are both negatives being added together. So remember, that means that the sign will stay the same when the signs match. And then you take the two values, in this case 82 and 59, and you just combine them. So adding these together, 2 plus 9 is 1, that's 11 really. Carry the 1 over, 1 plus 8 is 9, plus 5 is 14. So we end up with negative 141 from adding these two. Now I will add the next value, which is negative 43. So that's negative 41 plus negative 43. And so once again, we have two negatives being added. The answer is going to be a negative. And from that 141, that means I'm going to add another 43 right there. See that? Why are we adding? It's because they have the same sign. So 1 plus 3 in the ones place value is 4. 4 plus 4 in the tens place value is 8. And then drop the 1, negative 184. So a little bit. Now we're going to add a negative 37 to that negative 184. So Again, these two values are negative, meaning that my answer will stay a negative. And since they're both negative being added, that means we're going to add the two values as though they were positive. Just remembering that our answer is going to be a negative right there. So plus 37, so that's 4 plus 7, and the ones place value is 11. Carry the 1 over. 1 plus 8 is 9, plus 3 is 12. Carry that 1. In the hundreds place value, 1 plus 1 is 2. So negative 221. And hopefully we remember that even though we're doing a lot of addition right now, eventually we're going to have to perform division because we are looking for the mean using this specific method. Okay, so negative 221 plus negative 23 means that I got to go back here. Let's see if I can do this right. I know that I'm adding two negative values together, so my answer is going to be negative. And from that 221 there on the left, I've got to add another 23. Right there, because it's another negative value. Now 1 plus 3 in the ones place value is 4. 2 plus 2 in the tens place value is 4. Then drop the 2 makes that 244. So our final answer here, negative 244. But then we're going to start adding positives now. So I guess I'll change the color. So negative 244 plus a positive 35. And remember, with a problem like this one, we're looking at a negative and a positive. They're opposite signs. The negative value is bigger here, which means the answer itself will also have a negative sign. And then you just take the bigger of the two values, which in this case right now is negative 244, and you subtract the smaller of the two values. Remember, that's when they're opposites. And so I'm going to take that 244 and subtract 35. So 4 minus 5, I've got to borrow 1 from the 4 there to make it 3. 14 minus 5 is 9. 3 minus 3 is 0. Drop the 2. I get 209. Of course, it's negative 209 from the negative I found earlier. Okay, well, we got to add another 35 here to that negative 209. And again, they're opposite signs. And so the answer will take the sign of the bigger of the two values, which in this case is negative 209. And so I know my answer is going to be negative. And between the two values, I take the bigger of the two values, 209, and then I subtract the smaller of the two, which in this case is 35. So I subtract 35 again. 9 minus 5 is 4. 0 minus 3, I got to borrow 1 from the 2 to make that 10 minus 3. 10 minus 3 is 7. And then I drop the 1 there now, which makes 174. So that is a negative 174. And we'll just keep moving here. Negative 174 plus 43. So I take my 174. I know it's negative. It's the bigger of the two values, so my answer is going to be negative as well. And from that 174 there on the left, I'm going to take it. And since they're opposite signs, we're going to subtract that 43. Yeah, I'm not sure that I have enough space to finish this, but 4 minus 3 is 1 in the ones place value. 7 minus 4 in the tens place value is 3. Drop the 1, we get 131. There we go. Of course, it's negative 131. Because we knew that the answer was negative. And then I need to add another 43. I have to change my direction here, something like this. So negative 133 is bigger than the positive 43, which means that I'm going to take the bigger of the two numbers, negative 131, and that will be the sign of my sum now. So that's a negative. And I take 131, which is the bigger of the two values, and subtract the smaller of the two, which is, in this case, another 43. So 1 minus 3 in the ones place value, that would be 8, because I borrowed 1 from the 3 there to make it 11. And then I just show this as 12 minus 4. 12 minus 4 is 8. So now we're at negative 88. We see the negatives. Yeah, they get getting smaller as we essentially zero out some of these with those positives. So negative 88. Now I need to add another 48, like this. And again, they're opposite signs, so I'm going to see which of the two numbers is bigger. That's negative 88, so I know the sign of my answer is going to be negative. And I take my 88, the bigger of the two values, and I subtract the smaller of the two, which is 48. So 8 minus 8 is 0. 8 minus 4 is 4. So we end up with negative 40 from this sum. I know I'm writing small here, but we've only got 2 more to go, at least for the mean anyways. Let me see if I can do this better. That's a little better. So now I got negative 40 plus positive 61, and now the 61 is bigger and it's positive, which means that the answer will also be positive now. And then we take the bigger of the two values, which of course is 61, and then we're going to add that to the 40 there. So because we were already, that was a negative 40. Of course, the 60 is bigger and the 61 is bigger and it's positive. So we know the answer is positive, but between those two values, the 61 and the 40 negative, since the 61 is bigger, we'll just take 61 minus 40 there. So that'd be 121 right there, okay? And now we're going to take that 21 and add it to the final answer there, which is 75. Of course, that's not too bad. We can take 21 plus 75 fairly quickly and be 96 there. Now, this is just the sum of all these values. Of course, the last thing we're going to need to do is to actually solve for the mean. So I'm going to take the 96, which is the sum of all the values, and divide it by the number of values, which we already know and counted as 12. So 96 divided by 12, yeah, that goes into 12 evenly. It's 8 right there. So that's our mean, and that was a lot of work for the mean, but it was a big list as well. Next thing I would want to do here is to look for the median. Of course, you're welcome to look for the mode first or the range first if you'd like, but I'm looking for the median. And I'm just going to go to my list of values and just try to find the middle, right? So 82, 75, negative 59, just marking off the ends of each, moving towards the middle until I reach the middle, which appears to be between 35 and 35. Now, usually what we would do here is take the two values, 35 and 35, and add them, and then divide it by 2. It's pretty much the mean of the two medians there. And this is what we do when we have two numbers in the middle. You could say, well, what number is right between 35 and 35? Well, 35 is. So what we get from this is the same, 70 divided by 2, which is 35. So it's a median of 35. And now the mode, which is the number that occurs the most in the list, we can find that. Let's see. I got two 35s here, and then I also have two 43s there. I don't see any other numbers that repeat or that occur more than 2 times like these two are. So that would give us 2 different modes, one of which is 35, and then the other which is 43 there. There we go. Last thing we need is mean, median, mode, and range. And the nice thing about having this already in the list is we're just going to take the biggest value, 75, and we're going to subtract the smallest value. Now that's smallest value there is negative 82, and so when I perform subtraction here, I'm going to use keep change to change this into addition problem. Okay, so keep 75 positive, add now, and change the 82 into positive, which is now positive 82. We can stack and add these 75 plus 82 to get our actual range here. 5 plus 2 is 7. In the ones place value, 7 plus 8. In the tens place value is 15. So 157 appears to be our actual range here, 157. Okay, and that takes care of all 4 parts of this problem, all 4 answers here in the top left. So here's an order of operations problem for us, and we have a set of parentheses right here. So I'm just going to focus on that set of parentheses. It's negative 6 minus negative 7. So I'm going to use keep change on this, meaning I'm going to keep the negative 6, change the operation from subtraction to addition, and then negative 7 changes into positive 7. So the 7 is bigger than the 6, it's positive, so I know my answer is positive. Just take the two values and subtract them. Big one minus the small one, 7 minus 6 is 1. That's a positive 1. Now looking at the rest of the problem, 4 times 1 plus 15. That takes care of parentheses. I don't see any exponents, so I'm looking at multiplication here. There's no division, but 4 times 1, anything times 1 is itself. is 4, and then 4 plus 15 gives me my final answer. Just one final operation, 4 plus 15, which is 19. Right there. So 19 is our final answer for this problem. Here's another order of operations problem, and I do not see any exponents, but I do see parentheses, which is the first thing we should be looking for, and that's between the -6 and 11. 11's bigger, it's positive, so my answer is positive. Let's take the big number and subtract the small number. 11 minus 6 is 5. So that's 5 from that, and we weren't focusing on anything else there. Just make sure not to do the 3 minus 4 first, because it is out of order. There's multiplication between the 4 and parentheses, and so there's took care of all the parentheses, no exponents, and I just have multiplication here between the 4 and 5. 4 times 5 is 20, which means now I'm looking at 3 minus 20. I'd use keep, change, change. Keep the 3 positive, change the operation into addition, and then change that positive 20 into negative 20. Okay, so it's 3 plus negative 20, and I know that negative 20 is bigger than 3, so the answer is going to be a negative. But to solve, I'll just take the big number, 20, and then subtract the small one. Bar from the 2, 10 minus 3 is 7. Drop the 1 is 17. So negative 17 is our final answer. All right, more order of operations. We can do that. And I see parentheses on this one, but there's no operations within the parentheses, so I don't have to worry about that stuff. So I'm going to skip my parentheses, and I'm going to go straight into exponents, which I do see an exponent of 4 to the power of 2 there, which would be 4 times 4. And I know 4 times 4 is 16. Now looking at the rest of the expression, I got 16 minus 6 times 2. I'll put parentheses just to keep it consistent, times the 5 right there. And yes, there's all multiplication between those values because we don't see the operation, which means it has to be multiplication. So I would start with the multiplication from left to right, which means that the first set of multiplication will be between the 6 and 2. 6 times 2, that's one of our multiplication facts that hopefully we have memorized by now. And then it would be 12 times 5. You could just use the V thing if you'd like this. 12 times 5 is 60. All right? So now I have 16 minus 60. And so just like the last problem, we see that I'm taking away more than what I start with. So I got to change that sign, the operation, into addition. So keep, change, change. Keep 16, 16. Change the operation from subtraction to addition. And then the 60 now becomes negative 60 because it was positive. So keep, change, change. Changes this into an addition problem. And now I'm ready to add these two together. I see the 60 is bigger. It's negative, so I know my answer is negative. I just take the two values, the bigger of the two values, 60, and subtract the smaller of the two because they have opposite signs, 16. And that would be the sum, just as long as I remember to tack the negative onto my answer. So 0 minus 6 in the ones place value, I need to change that into 10 by borrowing from the 6. 10 minus 6 is 4. 5 minus 1 is 4. So there's 44, but again, don't forget to tack the negative onto that to make it negative 44. All right, more order of operations. Now, you know, some of these may take, or you may feel like they take a long time, but hopefully the more you do them, the faster they go, no matter how big they are, because we're just kind of rolling through our order of operation. Now, we got to be careful on problems like this because there is a set of parentheses that's true. There's nothing to do inside the parentheses, just a single value. The thing I'm more concerned about is the exponent thing. Remember, on a problem like this one, where it's negative 7 to the power of 2, this is only showing one negative, right? Because by the order of operations, you'd have to do 7 to the power of 2 first, which is 7 times 7. Notice I'm not putting the negative with the 7s here. I'll try and write those bigger. Yeah, so this is really just 7 times 7. Was that bigger? A little bigger. All right. And so that negative, remember, we talked about this. It's kind of like -1 times that stuff. So, I mean, you could show that if you'd like. I'm not going to because by the order of operations, I would just focus on the exponent, okay? So 7 times 7, I know, is 49. And then I would apply that negative. You could show it as -1 if you'd like, but it's just negative 49 right there because there's only one negative. So now I got negative 49 plus 5 times 3. and that was exponent, so I go to multiplication or division from left to right. I got 5 times 3, which is 15. So now I got negative 49 plus 15. So these are opposite signs. When I combine these, sorry, that's a plus sign right there. When I combine these, I got, because I'm adding them together, they're opposite signs. The 49 is bigger, it's negative, which means that when I combine these with addition, I will get a negative answer. And then we just take the bigger of the two values, which is 49, and subtract the smaller of the two, which is 15. So 49 minus 15, 9 minus 5 in the ones place value is 4. 4 minus 1 in the tens place value is 3, negative 34. And it looks like that's our final answer for this one. Order of operations, it says evaluate, which really means to just figure out the answer to this. But yeah, we do have not only one set of parentheses on this one. I'm going to try to identify them separately. I'll show the big set of parentheses, the square set of brackets with those purple parentheses, and then within that we have another set of parentheses. I'm making this slightly smaller, and be careful because on the inside of that set of parentheses there is another set of parentheses, but it's just negative 9. So remember that we don't have anything to operate within this set of parentheses with the negative 9. Now, remember, that's how the order of operations go. If you get a set of parentheses, you essentially start the order of operations within that set of parentheses, which is what I've done. So I'm just focusing on the negative 9 to the power of 2 minus 1. So that's the beauty of the order of operations, is it splits up these problems into smaller, more manageable problems pretty much right away for us. So now this negative 9 to the power of 2, this is different than the negative 7 to the power of 2 that we saw before, because the negative 9 is in parentheses, which means that it's negative 9 in parentheses twice. Of course, that's multiplication. Here I have a negative and a negative, which makes my answer positive. Or if you count, you could say there's two negatives. 2 is even, which makes my answer positive still. 9 times 9 is 81. So I end up with positive 81. Whoops, I almost did that again. 81 minus 1. And now I am ready to subtract here. 81 minus 1, I mean, we can show it here on the right. 81 minus 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. Drop the 8, gives us 80. All right, so that's that red set of parentheses, but remember, we're still operating within that purple set of parentheses. So within that purple set of parentheses, I still have 8 minus 7. Now, once again, I'm just going to restate this because it's a common mistake that we see when we grade these types of quizzes or tests. Is a lot of students will do the 8 minus 7 to start with, or even the negative 7 plus 3. Remember, that's out of order because there's multiplication between the 7 and the red set of parentheses, and there's multiplication between the 3 and the purple set of parentheses. So be careful when you do that. Now within the purple set of parentheses, though, I just did exponents. Well, I just did the parentheses, actually. And so I'm ready for exponents, but there are none now. And now we'll go to multiplication or division from left to right. I got 7 times 80 right there. Remember, it's not showing the operation between the 7 and 80, but it's there. So for me, I'd say 7 times 8, which is 56. And then I'd tag the 0 on there to the end. I don't write that bigger. 7 times 8 is 56. Tag the 0 on the end. And so we got 560. So now it is 8 minus 560. And I'll use keep change change to change the operation into addition, which is something we're a little bit more familiar with. So 8 will stay 8, or keep 8 positive. Change the operation from subtraction to addition, and then change the 560 from a positive 560 to a negative 560. Keep change change, because remember, we pretty much only operate with addition when we're looking at subtraction of either positives or negatives. So we're now ready to finish off the purple set of parentheses. I got 8 plus negative 560. I know the 560 is bigger and it's negative, so my answer is going to be negative. Now we'll take the 560, the bigger number, and subtract the 8 right there. So 0 minus 8, that's 10 minus 8, really. I'm going to borrow 1 from the 6. 10 minus 8 is 2. Drop the 5 now in the tens place value, and drop the 5 in the hundreds place value. Negative 552. Okay? But don't forget that we got the negative 7 plus 3 times that stuff, okay? So now, within the whole problem, we just solved the parentheses. Now there's no exponents, but there is multiplication and division from left to right. I see the multiplication here between the 3 and the 552 negative. Of course, there's one negative there. One is odd, so that makes our answer a negative. And now I'm ready to do, I'll rewrite this again, but 500, see if I can move this, 552 times 3, there we go. So on the ones place value, 2 times 3 is 6. Tens place value, 3 times 5 is 15, carry the 1. And the hundreds place value as well, 3 times 5 is 15, but add that 1 makes that 16. So that's a negative 1,656. And it's really negative 7 plus that value right there. So these two have the same sign, negative and a negative. So when I combine these, I'm going to still have a negative. And then I just take the two values and add them together. So I'm going to take that 1,656 and add the 7. So 6 plus 7, the ones place value is 13. Carry the 1. 1 plus 5 in the tens is 6. Drop the 6 in the hundreds. Drop the 1 in the thousands. So final answer of negative 1,663. So again, that's kind of a long process right there because there was a lot of operations. But again, it's not that it's difficult work. I mean, we got to be careful because, as you've seen, I even make mistakes on this stuff. But it's doable stuff, and that's the important part. But the order of operations will still remain, no matter how big or small the number may or the problem may be. So on this one, we'd say parentheses. There's nothing to do inside this parentheses, so I'd focus first on my exponents, which is negative 4 to the power of 2. Now that negative 4 is in parentheses, so when I show negative 4, two negative 4s, I need to show them in parentheses like this, which means that we're multiplying with two negatives. 2 is even, so I know my answer is positive. Of course, some of you would say negative and negative is positive. That's okay. And 4 times 4 is 16. So now this takes us to 12 minus 16. I'm taking away more than I have, so I'm going to use keep, change. I'll keep the 12 positive. I'll change the operation from subtraction to addition. Then I'll change that positive 16 into a negative 16. And now I'm ready to combine these because I'm familiar with addition of negatives. And the bigger of the two values will be the sign of the answer. It's a negative 16 is bigger, so the answer is going to be negative. And I take the bigger of the two values, 16, and subtract the smaller of the two values, which is 12. And so in the ones place value, 6 minus 2 is 4. 1 minus 1 is 0 in the tens. So our final answer here is negative 4. So here's another order of operations problem. It may not look like it right now. In fact, I mean, you could say it's just an exponent type problem. It doesn't really matter because it's going to end up being the same exact problem. Okay, so I got negative 2 to the power of 8. So here's what I'm going to use a little technology to give us this a little faster. Okay, so negative 2. I gotta show this multiplied by itself 8 times, right? So there's 2, that's 4. These are all being multiplied, and then I'm gonna get 8 of these, right? Just like this. So I've listed 8 of these negative 2's being multiplied. Now the first thing I would do for this one is to figure out the sign of the answer. Of course, you can do it 2 by 2 as you move from left to right, but I'd prefer just to see the answer so I can just multiply without having to worry about the signs as we go. So for me, I would say that how many negatives are there in this multiplication problem? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Same as the exponent, by the way, which we should expect. 8 is even, which makes my answer a positive. There you go. And so I don't have to worry about the negatives anymore. Really, all I'm doing is just multiplying 2's. Okay? So, and this you may have to do it from left to right. It's up to you. But 2 times 2 is 4. And then 4 times 2 is 8. Hope I give myself enough space there. 8 times 2 is 16. And then 16 times the, well, I skipped a 2, didn't I? That 16 came from this 2. There we go. So fixing my blue line. That comes from this 2. There we go. 16 times 2 is 32. I'm skipping the stack multiplication here kind of on purpose just for the sake of time. And then we'd have 32 times this 2, which is 64. And then 64 times this other 2 here. 64 times 2 would give us 128. And then 128 times the final 2 there would be 256. Okay, so that gives us our final answer. It's positive 256. And yeah, we don't really need to have the sign there when it's positive, but it is definitely 256. Yeah, so be careful on these with the order of operations, because this one is, while you may think that it's showing 4 negatives, it's only showing 1. All right, so first thing I would have to do on this one is I again, by the order of operations, we're ignoring anything that we're not operating with, which is that negative in the front there. So I'm really just looking at 5 to the power of 4, which would be 5 times 5 times 5. Okay. Um, well, we may have to stack, multiply these, but 5 times 5 I know is 25, and then 25 times 5 is 125, and so times another 5 there should be 625. Now I would apply the negative out here in the front to the product from the multiplication, and then it ends up being negative 625. So another way to look at this, remember, it's not that there's 4 negatives, there's only 1 negative, which means the answer automatically would have been negative. And that's a different way to look at it, because you could have figured out the sign of the answer first from a problem like this one, just like we did on the last one. Uh, that would be acceptable. All right, I do like problems like these because just by instinct, like I said, the sooner you make it instinct for you, I think the better off you'll be, because problems like this really are not that bad. 33 divided by 0, that's an undefined value. And once again, on the homework, I think sometimes they say they would prefer you to write DNE, but they'll specify what they want you to put in the answer when it's something that's undefined. Okay, anything divided by 0 is undefined, because if you took nothing and divided it up amongst no matter how many groups, you could do that indefinitely, or you could just get an infinite amount of nothing to everyone. All right, so multiplying these, just the order of operations again, but multiplication takes place from left to right. So I'd say, in fact, for me again, I'd say, what is the sign of my answer? So I don't have to worry about whether they're negative or positive. I see how many negatives? 1, 2 negatives. 2 is even, which means my answer is positive. I'm putting the positive sign there, but I don't really need it with the answer. Then I operate from left to right. So 3 times 4 is 12. Then I'm ignoring the negatives, and then 12 times 6 would be 72. So my final answer is that positive 72. I think I can do better 7 than that. Not always, but sometimes. And there's my positive 72. All right, yeah, and hopefully you like these as much as I do as well. Multiplication, there's not really order of operations, just straight multiplication here. But I do see that there's only one negative. One is odd, which makes the answer a negative. Again, some of you'd say a negative times a positive, which is okay. In any case, your answer is going to be negative. 8 times 9 is 72. And so the final answer is negative. And we're applying that negative to the answer. Negative 72, done. Word problems as well. On a cold winter day in Idaho, the morning temperature was 12 degrees Fahrenheit. By noon, it had fallen 15 degrees. And by 5 p.m. afternoon, it had fallen another 8 degrees. What was the temperature at 5 p.m.? So it's going to start at this 12 degrees right here. And from that 12 degrees, we're going to look at noon first. And it says it had fallen 15 degrees. Now, you could say that's 12 minus 15 more degrees. But because we're taking away more than we have, I'm going to change this into an addition problem. So I'm going to keep the 12, right, with keep, change, keep 12, change the operation, and change the sign now from 15 into negative 15 right there. So keep, change, and I can see when I combine these, because it's addition, but the 15 is bigger and it's negative, so the answer is going to be negative. Just take the two values, the big one, and subtract the small one. 15 minus 12, 5 minus 2 is 3, 1 minus 1 in the tens is 0. So we ended up at least at noon, it looks like it was negative 3 degrees. But then, from noon, it being negative 3 degrees, then what happens is that the temperature falls another 8 degrees for 5 o'clock. So that'd be falling, so that'd be minus 8 degrees. But again, we don't usually subtract when we're dealing with negatives. We usually add. So that's keep, change, change again. Negative 3, keep, change the operation from subtraction into addition. And then the 8, which was positive, I'm going to change into a negative. So that's negative 3 plus negative 8. I like these because they're the same sign, which means the answer will have the same sign. Just take the two values and add them. 8 plus 3 is 11. So it looks like at 5 p.m., it looks like it would have been negative 11 degrees. And I'm labeling that because they didn't say, oh, they did say it was Fahrenheit. So I'll put the Fahrenheit there as well. Okay, just be a little bit more specific with my label. But remember, when you're doing these by hand, you should be putting labels on. It will specify on the quiz or review if it wants you to put a label on though. All right, more order of operation stuff, no problem. Right here, I'd say, well, we start with 5 minus 8 because there's only subtraction moving from left to right. So that's what I would focus on. However, I'm taking away more than I have with the 5 minus 8. So I'd have to use keep, change, change. So keep the 5 positive, change the operation to addition, and then change the sign of the 8 from positive now to negative. So 5 plus negative 8, when I add these together, the 8's bigger, so the answer is going to be bigger. I'm sorry, the answer is going to be negative. And then 8 minus 5 is 3, so we end up with negative 3 right there. Now I need to subtract 15, but when we're subtracting with negatives, once again, we're used to doing this with addition. So keep the negative 3, change the operation from minus to plus, and then change that 15 from a positive into a negative. So now it's negative 3 plus negative 15. And when I combine these, I can see that both are negative, which means my answer is going to be negative. And then I do 15 plus 3 because the signs are the same. 5 plus 3 is 8. Drop the 1, 18. So negative 18 would be the final. No, what did I do? No, that's correct. We're good. I apologize. Look, I thought I'd made a mistake. All right, subtraction as well. So we're subtracting, but we have a negative, which means that we're going to use keep, change, change to change the operation from subtraction into addition. Okay, so I'm going to keep the negative 3. I'm going to change the operation from subtraction to addition. And then that 17, which is positive, I'll change into a negative 17. So negative 3 plus negative 17. I can see that both answers are negative. I'm sorry, both values we're adding are negatives. So I know my answer is negative. Then I just add the two values, 17 plus 3. 7 plus 3 is 10. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So it ends up being negative 20 on this one. But I will do this one. So subtraction, negative 8 minus negative 6. We're used to adding with these, so I'm going to keep the negative 8. Well, just negative 8. I'll change the operation from subtraction to addition, and then that negative 6 will then become positive 6. So I got negative 8 plus positive 6. The 8's bigger, it's negative, so my answer is negative. Then I just do the big number minus the small number, in this case 8 minus 6, which is 2. So we end up with negative 2 as our final answer. Yeah, so we've seen plenty of these already. 16 minus 22. For me, I would just use keep, change, change to make this an addition problem. So keep 16 positive, change the operation from subtraction to addition, and then change the 22, which is positive, to a negative 22. So now I see that I'm taking away more than I have, so the answer is going to be negative. And just take the bigger number and subtract the smaller numbers. 22 minus 16, borrow from the 2. 12 minus 6 is 6. 1 minus 1 is 0, so it's negative 6 final answer. On this problem, we have an order of operations problem, and yep, that means even though there's no parentheses, no exponents, no multiplication or division from left to right, I'm going to move from left to right. Negative 4 plus negative 10, so they're both negative, so I know my answer is negative. Take the two numbers and add them. 4 plus 10 is 14. So it's negative 14. Now I will add the 8, and so the negative 14 is bigger, so my answer is negative. Take the bigger number minus the small one. Because they're opposite signs, 14 minus 8 is 6, so negative 6 would be our final answer for this problem. All right, two values on this one to add together. They're both negative, so I know my answer is going to be negative. Since they're the same sign, though, I'm going to add the two values. 7 plus 2, which is 9, makes my final answer a negative 9. Use less than, greater than, or equal to make the statement true, no problem. So we'll have to evaluate these first. And while they may look the same, we've got to be careful on these because of the absolute value stuff. So first off, for me, I'd start with the value on the left. That's the absolute value of negative 256, which is really asking how far away negative 256 is from 0. Well, that's 256, okay? And the right side's asking the same thing. You can't ignore that negative that's in the front. So just by the order of operations, you'd have to do the absolute value first. How far away is negative 256 from 0? Well, it's 256, but then we need to apply this negative sign that's in orange there. So while again, these may look the same, they are actually very different. One's positive, one's negative. Positive is always bigger than a negative. So in this case, this would read 256 is greater than negative 256. Be very careful on these types. All right, and comparing these two, both these values are negative, right? And so in order to determine which one is bigger, we just got to figure out which one has less negative value, and that's the negative 2. Remember, this goes back to our number line thing. So if you look at 0, negative 2 would be about right there, and then negative 36 would be way over here, which means negative 2 is further to the right on the number line, meaning it's bigger between the two values. So negative 36 is less than negative 2.